let's just introduce ourselves because I don't actually have names. I do want to go on to it, but
We have names.
do you? Are you at Fees?
Mm-hmm.
I wondered why there was like plants around the doorway. I was like, that's not a Harry thing to do. So Harry, do you want to start just maybe who you are and what's your belief background, I guess, because that's the whole premise of this, isn't it?
Sure thing. My name's Harry. I grew up in a non-religious household and have since started to identify myself as, I guess, a sort of unaffiliated believer. I absolutely don't classify as an atheist, but I also haven't found any particular faith tradition that, hits all the right spots yet. So
Cool. I think you said on the census you described yourself as a deist.
a deist would be the kind of that's the best label I can put to it. But if you know somebody who's, I don't know, Zoroastrian and wants to convert me, I'm open to it.
Brilliant. Nick, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Nick. So I was born to a religious family. My grandpa was a local minister in the Baptist church, so raised Baptist. Went to university, still Baptist, but there aren't many Baptist churches up here. So started going to Methodist church, so part of the Methodist church up here, and bringing it down from the inside with my Baptist views.
Cool. And can I ask you a question? Because this has actually interested me, because obviously I knew you're a Baptist. Is there a difference between like a Southern Baptist in America and a UK Baptist?
What do you mean by Southern Baptist America?
Well, that's quite a big, I think, like Harry might know a bit more about it than I do, but it's quite a big like denomination in the Southern states of America, Southern Baptist. And I guess I just wanted to know if there was much of a difference between UK Baptists and Southern Baptists.
The Southern Baptists would be what a lot of media shows as like black churches in America. That tends to be the image.
Yeah, so Baptist churches, rather than belonging to a more hierarchical structure like the Anglican Church or the Methodist Church, is much more rooted in the individual church. So you can have a lot of different variations in churches. So, for instance, my grandparents were married by a female minister. There were female ministers in the Baptist Church decades and decades ago. My uncle goes to like an all-gay church where you have very, very open towards gay marriage and all things gay in Christianity. And then you have the other extreme of, say, like Westboro Baptist Church. And then you have sort of loose federations of Baptists. So it's the Baptist Union, for instance, in the UK. I imagine there's something similar, for instance, in the USA, but I don't really know about baptism around the world because it is very much sort of localized to each country and each church, really.
Brilliant. Oh, thank you. That did clear it up quite well for me. And then Sam.
Hello, I'm Sam. I was born into an unreligious family. I'm 28 now, and I came to know Christ at the age of 19. So about 9 years now, I've been believing in God. I've went to a very Pentecostal church called Assemblies of God, which is quite lively. And then I started a job in a traditional URC church. So when I first thought about going to church, I went, I'm not going to church because all you do is sit in wooden pews and sing hymn sandwiches. And I started going to this really lively church, and now I work in a church that has wooden pews and has hymn sandwiches. So same as Nick, I'm trying to break it down from the inside.
Perfect, brilliant. Thank you very much. And I suppose I should introduce myself because this is the first video that I've made. So I'm Luke and I'm an atheist. I think there's not much else to say there really in terms of my journey because I've not really been anything other than that. I've had mild dabblings in religion. Went to a CV school when I was in primary school. Had my first proper girlfriend was very religious. For those of you who remember her, and yeah, I haven't really had too much kind of involvement with churches and stuff, at least not in my teenage or adult life. So there we go. So I guess this is going to be really interesting. So you guys have come up with questions to ask me as an atheist from a Christian point, and I think that this is really, I wanted to do it this way just because I think that I want to do it the other way anyway at some point. But I do think that there are quite a lot of misconceptions around what atheism is, and I think that there are. I think something I really want to show is how, because we're all really good friends, how you can have a very we can have a very civil debate or discussion, not even debate, a discussion around this stuff without getting under each other's skin, which I think is absolutely missing in the conversation between atheists and atheism and religion, whatever that means. So yeah, so can I just ask what your guys' views on, like, what, before we answer any questions, what your guys' views on atheism?
Sorry,
Yeah.
Luke, just before, can you guys hear that on my end?
I can't hear anything.
TV, no.
No.
Okay, just a minute. I'm just gonna quick close this door, just in case, you know.
Just in case we can hear the TV.
Oh, look at those floral arrangements everywhere. Very nice.
I know. Is that magic? Is that some sort of sage or something? Keep the demons out.
These theists, they.
Is it? Yeah. Is that how this is gonna be? Am I the token crackpot?
So just to start, am I echoey, by the way, because I'm aware that this room is a bit echoey?
No, you're fine.
So just to start, like, what are your current views on what atheism is and what what atheism is and stuff?
As far as I'm aware, atheism is a way of saying there is no God. And to be honest, I don't know much more than that.
Oh, okay. So this is actually quite an interest. These questions are you're not aware. Okay, brilliant, perfect. That's good then. What about you, Nick? What are your thoughts, or what do you know about atheism?
Yeah, probably the same. So I'd say lack of belief in a God.
Cool. Harry, I think we've had this discussion quite a lot. So
Sure. I mean, as I understand it, atheism is the rejection of anything that can't be, explained as part of the natural world. So it's not just about gods so much as, superstition and astrology, even, anything that isn't like provable almost.
Okay, cool. That's a good baseline, I think, for where everyone is at. So, Sam and Nick have come up with questions. Harry, you're here to chime in. I want this to be a discussion. I don't want to just be answering and then not have, I don't want you to ask your question and for me to just go on an essay. So I will maybe ask questions back and let's make this a chat rather than, and I don't think we're going to get through all of them. So have your favorites and just ask whichever ones you want to ask the most. And we'll alternate between Nick and Sam. So Sam, let's start with you.
Okay. What do you believe is after death?
See, that's I really wanted you to pick that one. I was gonna suggest ones that I like the most, but I thought that would be a bit like, you might think, oh well, he's answering the easy ones. But this one I really enjoy, because I can answer it in one word. Nothing. I don't think that means much though. So do you want a bit more of a elaboration on that?
Well, I mean, it ties in with another question.
Oh, okay. Well, ask that one as well then.
What do you think the meaning of life is?
Oh, I see how those two link.
If coming to death is nothing.
Okay, cool. So,
sorry, can I clarify?
Yes.
Can I ask for a clarification? When you say the meaning of life, what do you mean by that?
I was actually going to ask the same question.
Kind of, what is your purpose? Are we to just go through the motions of being these intelligent beings to then, I don't know what is. I think all my questions kind of tie in
Yeah,
a little bit of a way.
I actually think my answer ties in with one of Nick's answers,
Okay.
or one of Nick's
Haven't given you any
questions.
answers.
Sorry, one of Nick's questions. So I'll start by saying that I don't think there is an intrinsic purpose. So I don't think that the universe exists for us to exist in it, if that makes sense. We exist in it because of natural processes that occur throughout the universe, and that's I guess a different question about how that things come to be. But in terms of our purpose, if I presume that that's the case, that things are natural, we don't have like this intrinsic purpose within us. What I would say is that that's something for us to decide. It gives us a kind of reason to have thoughts and to think about our lives on a bigger scale. And I do think so. The question that it links in with you, Nick, is this thing about morality. Yeah. So I do think that we have a like an inbuilt morality system that comes back from when we were animals throughout the process of evolution. And I think that leads us to want to improve the world that we live in and improve our species as a whole, which is what leads us to think, okay, well, I want to leave the world in a better place and I found it. That's where that motivation comes from.
So you might say that, like, in the process of building a society, humans have sort of given themselves a purpose.
Exactly. Yeah, precisely. And I think that kind of like that motivation, because I would argue that motivation is the same for lots of people, is comes from that innate drive. I'm just going to turn the light on because it's dark. Okay. Does that make sense? Nick, you're thinking. You have a pensive face.
Yeah, no, I'm just interested because so there's sort of I think Harry described that very well. Sort of in the process of building a society, you create a morality system. Obviously, there are various different societies around the world, so therefore it makes sense that there'll be various differing morality systems. So, do you think they can be sort of universal human ones?
Absolutely, and I think that you do see that. There was in my most recent blog post, which I don't want to talk about too much because I don't want to be like, go read this thing to understand my opinion. But I talk about this man named Jordan Peterson, who I don't know if many of you have heard of him, but he has an interesting view on atheism, which is that there are no true atheists because our society is predicated on Judeo-Christian values, which I think is a common view within the religious community. I don't know if that's a common view within, but it seems to be, especially in America. And my view is that if you take like the 5 precepts of Buddhism and you compare them against the 10 Commandments, apart from the ones that talk about worshiping God, they're very similar. Like, don't kill, don't steal, don't be sexually immoral, those kind of things. Oh, gee.
Sorry.
They're very similar, and that's 2 different cultures, 2 different religions who have very similar kind of moral bases, like the very fundamental morals, which would indicate to me that there's an underlying human element there that directs them. If I'm presupposing that God doesn't exist and that we all evolved, then that would make sense.
Yeah, but like you say, you're presupposing because those examples you've chosen are 2 religions.
They are 2 religions,
which have obviously a presupposing of a higher entity.
I think if you're looking at kind of shared global cultural values, the one that first jumps out at me would be the taboo of murder.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
And obviously that feels very basic. That's kind of, if you're building a society, what's the first thing you want to do? You know, not kill each other is a good start. And I think that speaks to its inherently destabilizing effect on any kind of group. If you're going out and you're starting a town, if you don't have a rule against murder, things are going to go wrong pretty quickly.
And I would argue that that's the same for stealing and for sexual misconduct
Sure.
as well.
So maybe in certain viewpoints, certain, I don't want to say rules, certain like common objections, you know, certain taboos, there is a part of it which is sort of, it's how you make the kind of society that we think of as civilized. You know, maybe they need, like, there are commonalities throughout the world because what we think of today as human society needs those things to stay stable. And then different religious or cultural traditions have enshrined those rules differently. But ultimately, it's kind of a part of a recipe for a modern civilization.
And I guess going back to like Sam's question about what is the purpose of life? The purpose of life, like our feeling of what purpose of life is to progress the group that we exist in, and that would kind of, for me, that lines up really well with what we know about the evolutionary process. Because if we're using like what Harry said about murder and stuff, about the destabilizing aspect of the group and how that will have a negative impact, then we've also got to look at the positive impacts that good behavior has, and how that will progress the group. So in one hand, we have killing people is wrong because it destabilizes the group and causes issues, and then on the other hand, we have having babies and having families and existing in peace and stuff like that is good, because that progresses the group and makes the group bigger and stronger. And that's the fundamental level of like our morality and the purpose for our living, because that's inbuilt in us.
Mm. I know this is a pretty big subject, so maybe we've saved the main bulk of it for another time.
Mm-hmm.
But as an atheist,
Mm-hmm.
you say you don't believe in things that can't be proven, and you touched on evolution, okay, which is currently still stated as a theory, is it not?
So I think the thing with theories, like, we got to think about, like, gravity is a theory, yeah. Thermodynamics is a theory, yeah. So when science is talking about theories, it's science takes the presumption, and I don't know whether I agree with this or not, that you can't actually know anything essentially. So what we have is the best explanation for the things,
theory,
the things that that presented with us, and stuff like gravity. We're very sure that gravity is exactly what we say it is. With the calculations all work, everything is stuff, but it's still the theory of gravity because it's the best explanation. We still don't know the actual proper intricacies of it. I think evolution is very similar to that, in that all of our understanding of it so far seems to add up to what we see in the present day. We make predictions about what will happen, and they come out.
It's the assumption of fallibility in science, isn't it? It's the idea that later evidence might prove current theories wrong. But for now, that's what we're working with. Like how, we used to have different models for like structures of atoms, and we had different models for how evolution might work. And maybe in another 100 years' time, that we'll be looking back at what we think now and thinking, oh, silly, those guys didn't even know about this thing we know about now, So it's more about leaving yourself room to be proven wrong, rather than stating yourself as being absolutely right.
That's a really good way of putting it, Harry. And I think there was something I watched the other day which was questioning someone's like, what's the word? Like his approach to God and stuff, because he was a young Earth creationist who had done quite a lot of research into philosophical apologetics for Christianity, and he was being asked basically about the evidence for evolution. He said that there wasn't anything currently that showed to him that the evolution was true. And he got asked a question: if somebody was able to demonstrate that evolution did happen, would it change your faith in God? And he was like, he was kind of avoidant. But the real thing that I took from it was he asked him about does he need the same level of demonstration and explanation for God as he's requiring from evolution. And I found that quite interesting because he said no. He basically said that he set the bar really low for God, but really high for evolution. And I just found that interesting. And I don't know if that's something that you guys have seen in other areas.
It's weird because they're, in my eyes, they're completely different in words of the evolution theory is based on facts, where a relationship with God is based on faith, which is believing without seeing. So yes, they are completely, in my eyes, different things. But I think the step to take to believe in God and the step to take to believe in facts, I'd actually say is the other way around. It's a bigger risk to take a step into faith than it is to believe in facts. So I get his point, but I think they're in completely different areas.
I've often been a little confused and frankly a little disappointed in lots of people on both sides of this debate, because it is one that you see come up a lot. You see kind of atheists arguing against kind of a creationist tradition, and you see a lot of people trying to score points on each other almost with it.
Mm-hmm.
I've never understood why they are incompatible views. Like this is discounting.
As a deist, you wouldn't know, would you?
Sure. Specifically, this is separate from the young Earth idea, because obviously that is directly contradictory. That's kind of them saying we have this time scale and we have this specific conception of what it looked like. But in general, I've always thought of science as shining a light on the intricacies and complexities of creation. I've always thought of, like, the more we discover about how the universe works and the more we realize how complicated and interconnected it is surely just us learning to better appreciate the the reality we live in. And if you believe that reality was created by an individual, a purposeful will and intention, then you're appreciating that intention more closely. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're trying to argue against them, I would think.
I agree that there's a lot of people on there with blinkers. There's a lot of Christians with blinkers on, and I may be one of them. But it's all about opening our mind. I'm currently doing a bit of a study on the Old Testament about all the creation side of things, and at no point can I see that it says at the beginning God created all these species. But it doesn't say to what extent. And if we believe God creates new things, who's to say that he's not creating new things as he goes along? So my current belief is that there is species evolution, that we've come from. I don't believe we've come from monkeys. I don't believe we came from a fish. But I believe we've come from maybe, I don't know, a shorter human. And over time we've developed, because you can definitely see the scale of humans, the way they physically are developing. Like when I was in sixth form, there was kids in year 7 nearly as tall as me. And it's going as fast as that. That, you know, whether that you could put that as survival of the fittest or whatever you see that as, but I believe in species evolution. Because if if a white woman marries a black man and they have a child, it's gonna not be white, it's not gonna be black, it's gonna be half mixed. You know, you can't say, oh no, that's it just, you know, if a tall person marries another tall person, there's a high probability that child is going to be taller. And the fact that I think a son will always be taller than its mother. If you always had the tallest girl, and you know, slowly height would just go up and up and up.
Yeah. So kind of adaptation.
Yeah.
You know, within recognizable guidelines, sort of.
So I think I'm an unusual atheist because I think that I mean personally, evolution is an important aspect to why I don't necessarily believe and stuff. But I don't think that, just in general, I don't think that it's as important to somebody's everyday life as other atheists seem to make out. I don't think you need to have a good understanding of evolution to be able to live a good life. And I guess more recently, I think that's probably what spurred me on a little bit, is that all the rhetoric that I've seen around atheism and its discussions with religious people and stuff like that, it's always been this weird kind of bipartisan perspective where, you know, we can't coexist, and I don't agree that that's the case. And I guess that's probably part of the reason why I was motivated to have this kind of conversation, is so that there's kind of like that balanced view where it's like, you know, we can have a civil discussion, and you know, like, I don't think that your belief in evolution or anything is something that's going to affect you as an individual, or how much you care about people, or how good you are, you know.